You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2-hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 80 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive into today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the singer and guitarist for one of the all-time great metal bands, Anvil. The band's documentary, Anvil, The Story of Anvil, is widely considered one of the greatest music documentaries ever. So welcome to the podcast, Steve Lips Kudlow. Lips, how are you? And is it true that Lemmy from Motörhead asked you to join the band as their guitarist?
Yeah, hello. First thing, and I'm okay. Yes, Lemmy asked me to join Motörhead, which I couldn't do because I was in the midst of getting ready to record my third album, Forged in Fire. So it would have meant that I was abandoning all the work that I had done and go join another band. It just didn't seem like the right thing to do. I don't know if it would have been a permanent thing anyway. I think it was short term. I think what happened was that Eddie Clark went home on from the North American tour at that particular time, and they immediately, because they just saw me the night before or the same night that he quit. I think that it was right on their mind. Why don't we just ask Lips? I would have done it, but like I said, it's like I was already going into the studio and recording and stuff. So it's like I couldn't abandon it. It just contractually and spiritually, I'm not leaving myself behind, because in a certain sense, I'm leaving myself. It's all my stuff. Anvil's me. I can't, if I leave it behind, now I'm in Motörhead. I'm no longer Anvil, right? So it was giving up my own identity that I'm already going to my third album. It just didn't seem like the right thing to do at the time, or even plausible or feasible. So it didn't happen, which angered Lemmy. He was really upset with me. And he's the type of person that says it like it is, and in person, we happened to be we were at a festival. Actually, I think it was actually at the Donington Festival. He just happened to be there. He wasn't playing. And when he saw me, he came right up to me and just started flipping out. This is afterwards. The picture that you're showing right now is after this fact.
Is it a different festival?
Yeah, it's a different festival. It's months later. Actually, this is a year later.
And he's not angry with you at this point?
No, at this point in this picture, he already had hired Brian Robertson from Thin Lizzy and had already recorded the album. And what he had done is where you're seeing standing there, it was like a little container. They call them containers. It's basically it's like a square box made out of metal with a couple windows in it, and that's band's change room. And I was just happened to be walking by, and Lemmy grabbed me and pulled me in there. And I guess they took a picture of that moment. But right there, he's going, "You gotta listen to this right now." And I go, "What is it?" "It's my new album. It's got a lot of melody. I want you to hear it." And he sticks the Walkman that he had at the time, puts it on, and I'm listening to it, and I was, wow. And I was at the same time extraordinarily relieved that he still has, some kind of regard for me. You know what I mean? Because the last time I saw him at the Donington Festival, he goes, "What kind of asshole are you? Why didn't you join the band?" He goes, "You know what it would have done for your own career?" And I go, "Well, I couldn't do it." He goes, "Fuck you." And he walked away. And then the next time I saw him was here. So it's like, okay, that certainly was a big relief. And we remained friends for our entire lives, really. It's just one of those kind of things. We hit it off. There's there's lots of stories, obviously, and a history there, and that's what it is, man. Musicians are friends.
So there's a temptation to join a band that's successful like Motörhead, but then there's also you that has a dream and has a vision for what Anvil can be. And man, it's better to pursue that actual dream and that vision than just be a
Well, you
part
have to
of
realize
something else.
that this was just after what their second or third album, so they weren't they were ahead of us in the sense that they were more popular at the particular time, and they started before we did. They had albums out before we did, so they were ahead of the in line. You know what I'm saying? So we were in support of them rather than the other way around. I'm just beginning my career. I'm going in to record my third album. Why am I quitting my band? I mean, that's pretty early on to make a decision that I'm bailing on everything that I'm trying to be. I barely had a chance to make it or to do anything, really. So it was like really a toss up. What do I do? Sink one ship to go join another one that may not do maybe as well as I might do later? A lot of questions that go through your mind. Plus the fact we didn't have real management. We never really have. And when we did, they didn't do much to help. In fact, they did more things to destroy.
In that picture, you were around 27 years old. He was 10 years older than you. He was kind of like an older brother to you.
That's right. An incredible thing. And he felt that. And it's interesting because he felt the same way. And it was him that actually said it to me. And we hadn't seen each other in quite a while. And we did a festival together in Italy. And he comes over and hugs me and he goes, "We're all family, it's only time in between us," which is a pretty, estranged family, but nonetheless family. And, these were the things that he said to me. And it's like, it's very heartwarming. I mean, he didn't have to do the interview in the movie. He didn't have to do that. He more than gladly did it, which is, I mean, that's pretty commendable. He had very nice things to say. He's always been, in my corner with me. You know what I mean? He's been my recognizance. He was the guy that went and told me what was gonna happen down the road. And it's quite remarkable, as the story goes. I mean, we're talking as much about Motörhead as we are about Anvil, but honestly, the beginnings were so tied with each other in a certain sense, because here we were putting out our first album and opening for Motörhead for them doing the Ace of Spades tour, and that's my meeting. That was when I met them in 1981. So it was at very, very integral moments. You know what I mean? And that's what brought the bands together, and is that whole aspect. The very first show I ever did as Anvil was opening for Motörhead, because that was just before our first album was dropped. I think it came out the next day, and they came to the Motörhead gig, and then they showed me the Hard and Heavy album. Right? I had never even seen it before. The only Hard and Heavy version I'd ever seen was the Lips Hard and Heavy album, which is the same, which has the logo that's on my arm and whatever. It's the original band was called Lips, because there's so much history and stuff. I mean, come on, man. We're going to celebrate 50 years, but the truth is 50 years has come and gone. I've been playing with Rob since 1973. So it's beyond it's beyond 50 years.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think it's 51 or it's over 50. It's so incredible. We're going to wrap up Motorhead here. The last thing is you mentioned to me that he actually roadied for Jimi Hendrix, which I didn't know. So I just wanted to share that with our listeners.
It's quite remarkable. When we did tour, I mean, after the little meeting where you see Lemmy and I in the picture, he also mentions to me that we're going to do the tour with him for that album. So I go, oh, fuck, that's awesome. So, at that point, we were getting ready to put out Forge and Fire, and he was putting out Another Perfect Day. So we went out on tour together. Now, this is when I found out what No Sleep Till Hammersmith meant. Okay, we get out on that tour, and I mean, they don't take days off. I mean, I'm fucking. I was exhausted. Like you get exhausted. And we weren't in a tour bus, right? They had a tour bus. They had the luxury way, right? And we were in a little van and driving from place to place and getting sleep where we can.
There's no recovery days for the vocals?
No. His recovery for vocals was doing a line of Speed. I mean, don't ask me, man. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you what I witnessed at the time. Okay, so we finally get a day off, and I'm thinking, fuck, man, I'm going to go party with Lemmy. So in the when we were all getting our rooms and stuff for that particular night, he told me come up to my room after you settle in, and we'll have a little chat. So I come up to his room, and he's sitting there with a 40-ounce bottle of vodka and a 60-ounce bottle of orange juice, and he starts mixing drinks. He goes, "This is called vodka," right? So I start drinking, and I don't drink, man, honestly. I still don't, never really have. So it hit me pretty quick. I might have drank by 6 ounces, which was I was pissed. I wasted. And Lemmy's going, "Look at you under the table." That's like, so I'm going, "Yeah, man." And I'm fucking exhausted, man. I'm glad we got a night off. You know what I mean? I'm really, really grateful. He goes, "Okay, well, I got just a solution for you." And he pulls this little black pouch out of his jean jacket, takes a knife, sticks it into the pouch, puts it under my nose, and goes, "Sniff it, you cunt." So, I mean, it's not like I'm going to go run away. I've already been drinking, so which completely loosened me up. Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? You know what I mean? And whack, I'm straight as an arrow, right? And the conversations went for hours. It just everything, dude. I mean, you can't imagine his whole life history, man, of whatever he like all the things he'd been through. But and then, of course, one of the most remarkable things was him telling me that he was Jimi Hendrix roadie, and moreover, he was Jimi Hendrix guinea pig. So what he would do, Jimmy would send Lemmy out to go get LSD. So Lemmy would go get the LSD, and then, of course, Jimmy wanted it tested so that he would know how many hits he should take, right?
And also that it's safe, probably.
And then that you don't go on a bummer trip, because you're buying from people you don't know, and Lemmy seemed to know whoever and whatever, so he went out and got it for him. So, like Lemmy said, he'd do one hit, and he'd report to Jimmy, and Jimmy would do 5.
Man, the lore of hard rock and heavy metal is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, and you're hearing this from somebody who lived this, and you go, what? Yeah, it's quite remarkable, really, and how small the world really is,
Absolutely. I was late to the Motörhead game, but I finally saw them live at Riot Fest in Toronto in 2015. So I'm glad that I got to see them. They headlined. They got all the love and respect with the fans that came out, and that's a memory I'll cherish forever. So we've been talking a lot of Lemmy, a lot of Motörhead, but now we are going to focus on Anvil. So I like to start.
Okay, here we go.
Here we go, baby. There's lots to talk about. So I like to start the interviews by sharing with our listeners how the guests and I know each other, just to show the importance of networking, of building community, fostering relationships. So in our case, I just reached out to you as a fan and said, hey, I'd love to do a 2 hour deep dive interview. I'd love to honor your life, your career, and your discography, which is what we're about to do now. But before we do that, I wanted to kick off this interview powerfully. So I reached out to another Canadian icon. This is someone that also started a heavy band in the 70s in Toronto, and he sent in some kind words. So this is from Gil Moore, the drummer and singer from Triumph,
Oh, Gil
multi-platinum
Moore. Okay,
band.
yeah.
And this is what Gil has to say. He says, Lips and Anvil are legends. Their dedication and determination set an example for many Canadian musicians about what it takes to survive in the rock and roll jungle. So that's from Gil Moore.
Oh, that's pretty nice. Yeah, we have a lot of respect from a lot of the big names, really. It's only the people that are under, only the bands that didn't get as big, or kind of peers or whatever, you're going to get a certain undertow of how come you guys and not us, you know what I mean? That kind of rubbish. But I don't dwell on it or really think about it. It says more about them than it does about me, so that's it.
We're going to talk a lot about your amazing albums. We're going to talk about the documentary, the new albums that you've released over the last few years, the upcoming shows that you have on the books. But first, I want to go all the way back to the beginning. People see you now, they see this legend, this rock star, but you mentioned that it's been 50 years you've been working at this career. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Is there an earliest musical memory that jumps out at you when you think back? Like, where did this love of music come from?
To be really honest with you, I think it just kind of naturally, you know what I mean? I was attracted to music.
Was there music around the house or?
Oh, always, yeah. The radio was always on. That was the thing. My mother would turn it on at 7:30 in the morning, and it would not get shut off till it's time to go to bed. The radio was always on.
What kind of music do you remember hearing?
Well, it's actually a variation, because it's not just my mother's influence of having the radio on all the time, with everything from big band to what was popular in the 60s, and not necessarily rock music, but like all the Frank Sinatra, all the stuff that my folks listened to radio station, which gave me an insight into everything from big band to what was contemporary during the 60s, like Tom Jones and whatnot. So, and the other places that I had a huge influence of music is from my older siblings, my older sister as one, and of course my older brother, which was probably more, even though my sister was the one who owned all the records, my older brother really had that laser focus on guitar, right? Because by the time I was 10 years old, my dad brought home a guitar, and everything was guitar, right? That after that point, my life took a right turn and never went back.
He brought home the guitar for you, or did he
I
play?
had a fascination for this stuff from very, very young. I mean, I can remember seeing Elvis Presley on TV, and they only showed from the head up, and I'm going, why don't they show what he looks like? Why are they only showing his face? And
No gyrating, I
I
guess.
don't worry about it. She wasn't about to explain anything to me. I was only like 5 years old or something, right? So it's just funny. And then, of course, later on, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But moreover, I really got attracted to the Rolling Stones because they had a harder, meaner edge. And maybe I could relate to them more in the sense that they weren't pretty boys. The Beatles were the pretty boys in a certain sense, and the Rolling Stones had a rougher edge. You know what I mean? And for whatever reason, that attracted me. And most of all, probably the song "Satisfaction," because the song "Satisfaction" in 1965 was actually it's the beginning of riff rock, is what that is. And the second I heard it, I was enthralled. I couldn't believe how much I liked that. The whole the guy's playing one riff and the singing is going over top of it. How fucking cool.
I heard a story that Keith Richards, that riff came to him in a dream, that he just woke up and he went to the guitar and he had the riff like it was given to him by some divine force.
Yeah, it's like, and it's distorted guitar. Years before it really became a thing to do. If you follow what I'm saying, most of the stuff to begin with was all clean. It's all just a guitar through an amplifier, no distortion. You don't turn it to 10. Only maniacs do that, and guys who want to wreck their amp. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that I got an amp, I got to turn it to 10. You go, oh, don't do that, you'll blow it up, right? That's how we looked at it when we were little kids and we first got equipment. Don't do that. But then in around 1967, everything took a big turn because, of course, Jimi Hendrix came out. That's it. Changed the whole entire landscape of what rock music was and what it was going to be. You know what I mean? It was a huge change because things like that hadn't been really done before. It was really revolutionary.
In what way?
The sound of a distorted guitar and it feedback being used, and to such a degree, such a breakthrough that I can even honestly say that it was really the invention of heavy metal. Really, it's really the real ground roots. I don't think it gets enough. I don't think it really gets enough attention or I don't know, credit, because even just the opening of Purple Haze, the tritone. What metal band doesn't use tritones? And whoever used a tritone before that? I never heard it before. And what is a tritone? It's basically it's notes that don't sound good together. It's I mean, that's a fundamental way of saying, but it's the addition of what they call the blue note or the evil note. And if you think about the song Black Sabbath, there's the two octaves, bum, bum, and then the evil note. Nah. That note, that particular note is what they call the tritone. These are just basic fundamental aspects of how important Jimi Hendrix was and what that did. I mean, to the point that all the greatest guitar players at the time were blown away. So it's a lot to be said about that. That's and that is really what the heart of metal was and continued to have until more recent times when everything's been done. And we can talk about that too. But like we were talking about the fundamental basic beginnings to where it is now, everything's been done. Like with an electric guitar, pretty much. I don't know what else they could do to it. I think the only and nothing could have had more of an effect than the guitar itself. The guitar was such a centerpiece to what all the music that exists today. And until they come up with a new instrument that is that broad and wide and full of all different possibilities, it'll never be beat. He'll never get more than the guitar,
Can you talk about your discovery as a child of a few unique ways to play that guitar that
of course, in the very earliest years, and it's interesting because everything came with everything else. You know what I mean? You've got instead of an actual amplifier, we used our stereo, our hi-fi, because my older brother, of course, he knew how to wire it all up, and he soldered together an input for the guitar to go into the stereo, so that we immediately had an amplifier. And of course, then he got this. I got to get a tape recorder, and he went and got a tape recorder, right, a reel to reel at the time. So rated all at the same time that I'm being introduced to the guitar, I have recording equipment to immediately start playing with and doing stuff with. So that inspired me as a little kid to have, the little batteryized tape recorders. So I'd record whatever I played and then listen back so that I could have some kind of. So that's how I learned how to play, is by creating rather than copying, because it was easier to come up with something of my own to copy someone else.
Maybe that's why your guitar playing is so unique, because everyone else starts by being influenced.
I don't know.
And you started by creativity.
Right, or what is wrong, or what is. I had teachers. Of course, my older brother helped me learn, and my parents bought a Beatle book, a Beatles song book, which had the diagrams of how to do all the chords. So not only all the chords that I'll never ever play and never have played since. You know what I mean? The Beatles music was so complicated in chord structure. It's not even, what I'm doing is not even music in comparison. Okay, the theoretical part about what the guitar is actually capable of, and how limited rock music actually, the simplicity of rock and roll made it. You know what I mean? But there's an absolute beauty in that, because do you really want every song to sound like Michelle or Yesterday? No, we need metal. You know what I mean? We need that's what we need.
How did you figure out that you could talk into the microphone on the guitar to an audience?
These are things, because I've had all this equipment and all this stuff. You go wild, man. You go trying all kinds of different things. So we learned how to make an echo, use an echo, because we could actually pull the polarities of the recording heads so that it created echoes. So I started experimenting with using echoes. So some of the things that I did, and I used took ball bearings and put it on the string and let them roll up and down the string. And of course, oh wow, listen to that. And of course you got an echo, so you got this, and I go, wow, look at that. And look at the sounds you can get. And of course, by the ball bearing rolling up the strings, I realized, okay, so something that's a very hard surface acts like your finger, but you don't hear the fret. So if you take something metal and run it along the string, it changes its tonal quality, right? It's going up and down. Wow. So I discovered what bottleneck is. That just not because someone showed me, because I'm experimenting. Okay, so then I had what in the 60s they used to sell these little batteryized cars that all came apart and you could interchange all the parts. They were called a motorific. Okay. And I had this little motorific car and I put it on the guitar and I let it drive up the strings, right? So of course, as it's driving up the strings, the bottom is hard plastic, so the strings are being touched. So therefore, now you're getting a, and then of course, as soon as the thing got across the little motorific got across the pickups, it just went, but like I'm going, whoa, what the hell? So I mean, there were a lot of things. Telephone. I put the telephone up to the guitar, and it worked as a speaker mic. I mean, these are all little things. These are all things that that's what a kid does when he gets a toy, right? He finds out all the parameters. What can this thing do? You know what I mean? Like once I realized that pickup amplifier, what else can it pick up? So then, of course, what happens if I yell in the pickup? Well, that came through too, because it would vibrate the metal that's around the pickup and it would pick up my voice, and it would act like almost like a diaphragm. Basically, that the coating or the cap on the pickup becomes like a diaphragm and vibrates, and then therefore the pickup is able to pick up the moving metal or the diaphragm or what it is. That's that's how a microphone works. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But I mean, all these things I was discovering because I had an older brother who supplied me with all this stuff, as well as my own instincts and the things to go find out about. So of course, later on, when we first formed the band, or when we first formed, actually the beginnings of the Lips band, it's when we had the original 4 members, when we finally got that together, when we were in our first rehearsal room, we started into conversations about what we can do that can make us stand out and not be like any other band or anything that anybody's ever seen. And we wanted to have all the songs to be about sex. And because here we were in our late teens, early 20s. I mean, that's all you could think about. So what the hell? So one of the things that came out of the conversation was that all of a sudden it just struck me, I could use a vibrator on my guitar. And they're going, what? I go, yeah, man, because the sound of the motor goes through the pickup and I can use it to play slide. And they're going, fuck, that's brilliant, man. And the other things that that came with it was the way that we dressed, because there wasn't anything that it was the Ted Nugent era. So it was this side of glam, it's just after the glam era, you know what I mean? And so you could look mean and tougher. It started being cool to wear studded bracelets. And Ted Nugent was one of the first guys that did that stuff. That's what those long those long, but I guess that's really came from the idea for the bow and arrow, but he put them on his arms. We called them power bands, so, I mean, there were those things. So I designed my own, and I made my own. And this was before it became commercial to have studded leather. So I actually had to buy pieces of leather and studs and make my own designs up, because they didn't exist yet. You couldn't buy it. You had to make it.
Lip's the fashion designer.
Yeah, but I mean, these are all the things that happened that, in 1977 to 1981, in that period of time. Where were you going to get a studded wristband in 1977? And people are going like, "What the fuck do you want that for?" You know what I mean? It's not glam. It just evolved. The clothing, the whole entire thing was evolving, and we were part of its evolution because we were thinking of things and creating things from nothing. There were other things that we tried at first, like hanging stockings and panties and and bras and all stuff from the cymbal stands and stuff like that. And then it just became like, it's ridiculous. And then some of the other things that we did, we used to set up a noose that would hang in front of my amp. And then I do this song called Bondage, which ended the show. And at the end of Bondage, I would hang my guitar, put it in a noose and hang it, and it would swinging in front of the amps and stuff. I mean, these are kind of things that I still miss, that were part of our show that went away. Other things that we came up with were Hang a Moon. And what I would do is during the song Bondage, I'd get up on the drum riser and I pull my pants down and hang a moon at the audience. But part of the shtick, so to speak, was to paint. I painted a big pair of lips on my ass.
Was that a real crowd pleaser?
And it was supposed to have been a tattoo. I got a tattoo on my ass. I never did, and I still don't. But that was the idea. It wasn't just a moon. It was an actual purpose. There's the Lips logo is on my ass. Anyway.
You first met Anvil drummer Rob Reiner when you were 13 or 14?
Yeah, 1973.
And the story is that you would just walk by this house and there were drums playing. Is that true?
Well, yeah. What it was, I originally come from another across the air base. Basically, now it's a park, but it was an air base from where I originally lived and to where I moved to. My parents decided to move to the other side when I was 15. So in order to get to high school, because when I was 16, I had to walk by Rob's house. I'd walk across the park and then walk by his house and stuff. And there'd be a drummer playing there. And I had no idea how old this person was. And I figured that they must be old because I'd come home from the orthodontist or from a doctor's office and have to walk back to school. And there's drums coming out of the basement at noon. You know what I mean? Must be an older guy, right? Otherwise, they'd be at school. Whoever this guy is would be at school. So it can't be a guy my age. Well, it was a guy 2 years younger than me who was skipping school to play drums. It's just kind of funny. I'm laughing at it now, but it's what it is, and it's what it was, and that's somebody who knew what they were going to be from day one. You know what I mean? There's no question. There was no question in Rob's mind that by the time he's going to do this for the rest of his life, that nothing else really mattered. which is pretty profound when you stop and think about a 12 or 13-year-old having that mindset. That's pretty out there. And I can't honestly say I'm any different. Just more, I was more insecure about it. And I had a lot of negativity around me in the way of my parents, and they didn't want me to do this at all, not at all. And it was an embarrassment to them, really, almost. And my dad never saw the success. So it was an embarrassment to him till he died. But before he died, he came to realize that I got fucked in the music business, and that he should have hired lawyers to go after certain things. And maybe I'm not a failure, and maybe I'm not a failure at all, and somebody has fucking taken it away from me. That was a big deal to him in his final days. But until he came to that realization, wow, no respect, none.
So is it that they wanted you to take a traditional route of going to school and getting an education?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like my older brother was a research doctor, and my younger brother is an accountant. So yeah, what happened to you?
They call it the evil gene when music is in somebody and they couldn't do anything else. They wouldn't be happy. You have to follow that evil gene and follow through with music. And, maybe you would have had some success doing something else, but it wouldn't have been you. You wouldn't have been living your authentic self.
Well, the thing is, at 10 years old, when my dad brought the electric guitar home, which is interesting because his tailor shop was a couple doors away from a store that had musical instruments. They were a jewelry shop, but they also sold musical instruments. And I remember going and looking at in through the window, and always telling my dad, "There's an electric guitar. I want an electric guitar." And I always tell him that. And one day he brings home an electric guitar when I'm 10 years old, and I'm standing there in the living room with the strap on, holding it. And I said to my younger brother, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna be a musician. This is what I'm gonna do for my life. I know it, and I feels like I've got to do it. And he goes, "Yeah, I believe you, man." And it's been that way since I was a little kid, like that. That's where I was gonna go. And in my own privacy, I was singing privately. You know what I mean? I would never let anybody hear me sing. So, but it's interesting that the first band, after what it was eventually with Rob, I go by his house and this and that. And there's this other kid in my grade 11 or 12 biology class, and he sees that I'm drawing a guitar on my notebook, and he goes, "Oh, you play guitar?" And I go, "Yeah, man." He goes, "So do I." It's like, "Okay, cool, man." He goes, "Let's jam." He goes, "Where do you live?" And I go, "Oh, I live over on this street." And he goes, "Yeah, I live over there." I go, "That's only a couple blocks away." He says, "Let's get together and jam." He says, "I know this drummer that lives at the corner of, and he's explaining where Rob lives." And I'm going, "I think I know who that is." And he goes, "Well, you've probably not met him. He doesn't go to our school." Because Rob was in junior high and we were in high school because we're a couple years apart. It's just interesting. So Rob shows up at the jam, and the jam starts. And of course, Marty the guy that invited us, he drops out because he doesn't know all this Black Sabbath music and Deep Purple and what I was coming in with to play with Rob. And Rob's just flipping out, and we're playing Grand Funk and all kinds of just the stuff that we liked as a kid. But then, of course, that got boring really fast. So I just started into playing. I just started riffing, making up music because I'm so excited. I'm having such a good time. I started creating, and Rob's playing along with me. And then Marty, the other guitar player, starts flipping out. He goes, what fucking song is that, man? I go, I don't know. We're making it up as we go.
That's amazing.
And it's been like that for 50 years. You know, no matter what riff it may be, Rob has an instant, I know what that is. I know how to, I know what, immediate. And it's a language. We both speak the same language. And it's quite remarkable that we realized it immediately. Both of us did. It wasn't just on my part. We just went, oh, this is magical. I can't believe I'm finding a drummer that can play like this to this kind of music. Because up until then, if I play a riff that no one's heard, they can't play along with it. They're, what's he doing, man? Like, I don't know. Rob just, ooh, yeah, bang right in. Like, I don't know how to explain the difference. It was like eye-opening for me, and for Rob, it's like, oh my God, this guy's coming up with shit right here and now. That's a writer. Like, you completely recognize what that means. It's not cover tunes. If you know you're a musician and you want to get someplace, the only way you're going to do it is by being you, not by being a copy of someone else.
So we're talking about Anvil drummer Rob Reiner, and I reached out to the legend himself, and I have some kind words sent in. So Rob says, Lips, he's been my best friend and music writing partner for nearly 50 years, and I love him dearly. And the journey must continue. A very talented songwriter. So that's from Rob.
Yeah, we both appreciate what we both bring. That's about how you remain friends. You got to have appreciation for what the other person does. Really important, man. And give credit where credit is due. Absolutely. That's the greatest, to me. It's not only the greatest drummer, it is the greatest drummer I've ever played with, because I've never played with anyone else.
I think that's a compliment.
Yeah. And quite frankly, I guess I'm the best guitar player he's ever played with, because I'm the only one that he's ever played with. So in a certain sense, you know what I mean? We've been building our career and maintaining it for a lifetime. And it doesn't seem like it's that long. It goes quick, man.
The first song that you guys wrote together was Thumb Hang?
Yeah, thereabouts. One of the early ones. It's one of the early ones.
Why wasn't that song released until the re-release of This Is 13 in 2009?
Because I look at I could. Here's a real interesting fact. Okay, we can talk about a number of different things, but on the newest album, there's a song called Grindstone that isn't on the actual release. It's backup songs that people have never heard. It's really interesting, because what the song was the song Gravestone, because the first band that Rob and I put together, that's what we called it, because of course we were Black Sabbath fanatics, and all the songs were very, very Sabbathy. That's what we were trying to do. And we had a song called Gravestone, because we figured, well, Black Sabbath had a Black Sabbath, so we got to have a title track for that. So we called one of the songs Gravestone. I don't remember what I sang or how I sang or what the hell I did when I was 12 or 13. Okay. I remember the riff. I remember the I remembered that. So what I did, and I remembered the verses, but I completely wrote a whole song, a whole new song, but called it Grindstone instead of Gravestone. Interesting. But stuff sometimes takes a long hibernation to come back. And sometimes it never even makes it. It never really makes it back. You know what I mean?
So did Thumbhang end up on that album
It was
because
a
the
song that we
documentary?
recorded that we didn't release.
Yeah, was it because of the documentary that, the popularity of the documentary, and you talk about the song Thumbhang in the documentary, was there like a demand for that song to then get released after?
Yeah, well, people were going, what was this song? What is this song? And what? So I wrote the song. I wrote the song. I used all the riffs and stuff that I had and properly finished all the lyrics and figured out what they were going to say and how they were going to how the melody was going to work and all of that. Properly wrote the song rather than it being like a kid that doesn't know what they're doing to an adult that knows exactly what they're doing. You know what I mean? It came out very well, actually. Really interesting project to go back in and just go and record it. It was the director, Sasha, once again, you guys got to record the song. You got to do it. And then VH1 was picking up the option to put out the album and everything. And they thought, well, you got to make it different than the release that you guys put out. Go and record Thumbhang. So along with recording Thumbhang, we re-recorded a couple of other older songs so that we could use them through our publishing rather than through the label that still owns the rights. Once the publisher has it and there's a new version, you don't have to give the record company their money. You can give the band the money. Okay, so now I can make money off the song Metal on Metal, whereas otherwise I don't make money off that on the original when the original gets played because all the royalties are back. They take them back. Right? They hold your royalties. You never get royalties until it's paid off, and they pay them off. Anyway, it's all mathematical way of telling you you're fucked. Okay, that bottom line. That's generally what I'm saying is. So what we did in order not to be fucked is we re-recorded a number of the old songs for releases and other things.
So let's dive into the discography for Anvil. So in 1981, you release Hard and Heavy. This is the debut album. What thoughts, memories, and emotions come back to you now when you think of that debut album that really kickstarted this amazing 50-year journey that you've been on?
Well, even at that point, some of the songs were 3 or 4 years old. So it was really no problem in recording it, and we did it in very short period of time and for very inexpensively. We paid for the album ourselves, and then we sold it at a profit to the label, and in doing so they've captured our rights for life.
And this is Attic Records.
We didn't know what we didn't know what the implications were going to be. Not really, because you're in your 20s. You don't never done this before. The kind of record deal that these guys are giving you, they don't exist anymore. Like you don't sign away for life, but in those days you do. And what I mean by sign away for life, we lost the rights for the first 3 albums forever. So that's what that, when you talk about hard and heavy, that's what it makes me think of. And we had no real choice. It wasn't like there was a lineup of labels. It was the very beginnings of metal, right? And none of the majors, particularly in Canada, wanted to even know, not at all. Like what the hell? That kind of music is that? Weren't interested. There was an independent label called Attic Records. They came down to see us at the Gasworks, which was held back from us. We could have had that record deal 3 years earlier. But because of who we had roadieing for us, who happened to be the doorman from this particular club called the Gasworks, and that kept us from, they wouldn't let him because he's working for us, they wouldn't let us play in that club. And we had to play in this club up the street and make their bar empty before they started thinking twice about what their decision was. And by the time that happened, we'd already been on the road for 2.5, 3 years. And then we played that club, and then we got our record deal. Now, had we been, we were an original band. We're playing the same songs the night that they signed us as the night that 3 years earlier. So to me, it's just really unfair shit. Unfair shit. So we could have had our record deal way earlier. But even though that didn't happen, and that's not the way, it still was ahead of its time, because we were doing something that hadn't really caught on yet. So there was a price to be paid for that. But because, of course, the material coming out of the 70s, because that's what we were. The first album is music that was written in the 70s, because that's when it was written. I can't change that. We finally put the album out in 81, but trust me when I say that a good portion of it, if not all of it, was written in the 70s. So it was more of it was before metal, so to speak. It was the metal thing. When we came into the label, we were called Lips, and the guy goes, it's not distinguishable enough. It's just not. You can't tell what kind of music is this going to be. You need something new that is independent. You don't want people thinking that you're Lips Incorporated doing Funky Town. Okay, so you need the guys to come up with a new name, and Rob came up with the name. He came up with the name, so it seemed to make sense, especially because we had called it absolutely made sense, because we'd actually called the Lips album Hard and Heavy. So when he said Anvil Hard and Heavy, we went, well, that even works better, doesn't it? Fuck, that works way better. And then, of course, we took the name into the label, and they started flipping out. They're going, that's the best heavy metal name you could ever come up with. He says that's going to be, it's so marketable because you've got something that becomes almost like your motif is the anvil. It's an inanimate object. You can always come up with stuff with an inanimate object. So they were overwhelmed and really happy with the name, and actually we were too. So when it came time, of course, to write the second album, I went into rehearsal one day and I turned all the tone off on my treble pickup and just played the first thing that came to my mind, and it was Metal on Metal. I just did this. I go, oh, fuck, that sounds it sounds like a buzzsaw, man. Listen to that. That's such a buzzsaw sounding. Going, yeah, man, and I go, yeah, it's Metal on Metal. And then all of a sudden it's like Metal on Metal. Wait a minute. And that's how it got its name. It's because it sounded like going metal on metal. That's how it sounded. So it just became that. And I think the lyrics were written in about 10 minutes, and we all stood around saying, it was Rob that said, okay, metal on metal, da 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 da, metal on metal, da 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 da, and that's how it works. I'm going, yeah, fucking cool, right? Great idea. What a great way to go about the vocals. So of course, metal on metal, okay, it's what I crave. You know what I mean? And away you go. And we had, all of us contributing things to say. Of course, we had way more than we needed. So it was just cherry picking. Which ones are we going to use?
So the band's second album came out a year later, 1982, and this is a landmark album in metal. This came out 1 to 3 years before the debut albums from the big four, Metallica, Anthrax, Slayer, and Megadeth. So they were highly influenced by metal on metal.
Well, I think it's like the guy Johnny Z said. It was like a blueprint. It was a blueprint for everybody to use. The metal on metal album was us realizing what our identity was and what it should be in an up-to-date fashion in comparison to the first album. But by this point, of course, we'd already opened for Motörhead. We were much more in tune with what metal and plus the fact the songs we're writing weren't written in the 70s. They're actually legitimately being written in the 80s now. And that's what the big difference was. And that's why the first and second album sound not really alike, because one has come to realize what we need to be and what we were, or where we needed to go. And of course, by the time the third album we went too far. And what I mean by that is we lost the catchiness to a great degree that the Metal on Metal album had. And that it changed the trajectory of everything, because of course the people in and around us lost faith. I mean, we'll go on to talk about what happened, but the Metal on Metal era was phenomenal. Of course, we went and we played the Donington Festival, the Monsters of Rock. But more importantly, what ended up being more important, at least to me, is the fact that we played the Marquee. The Marquee, of course, was the ultimate rock club in London, England, and all the greatest bands that have ever existed have played there. Everybody from Hendrix to the Who, to you name it, everybody's played the Marquee, or from the era did. So now, what that brought, most importantly, that is so important. There's a knock at the door during the sound check into the change room, and it's this 15-year-old kid, Sasha Gervasi. That's the guy who made the documentary. So he was the kid that changed everything, and that actually the most important fan that we've ever had. And we recognized it immediately that he was somebody special, because how is it that a 15-year-old is actually keeping your attention when you're in your 20s, if you understand what I mean? But it's just, he really, the vocabulary, the sense of humor, the kind of person that this kid was remarkable. He is a remarkable person. He was a very special kid, and we let him in. We let him into the inner circle of our band, and we became friends. And we've been, of course, friends ever since.
And he became a roadie for Anvil?
Yeah. He really knew his stuff, man. And of course, he's a drummer. So because he was a drummer, we said, hey, and what had happened was we'd given him our addresses and stuff, And he said, I've got relatives in Toronto, where you guys come from, and I'm going to come visit you. And we all went, yeah, right. Sure, teabag, because that's what we were calling him, right? because it was just so razzable. You know what I mean? He's just, let's just piss on, have a piss with him. You know what I mean? Having fun, So we nicknamed him Teabag because he's English, right? And everybody drinks tea in England, so he's Teabag. So, oh my God. So, I mean, very, very, it's quite remarkable in when you stop and think about how by chance, you know what I mean? So in any case, as it was, there's a knock at my door when I lived over on Bathurst Street. And I open the door and there's Teabag. I go, what the fuck? What are you doing here? He goes, well, I'm staying at my aunt's place. She just lives down the street. I go, you're kidding. He goes, no, man. I go, okay, well, come on in. I go, well, how long are you going to be around? He goes, oh, I'm around for the next couple of weeks and stuff like that. And I go, okay, well, you know what? We're going to Quebec. Why don't you come with us? And maybe you can help roadie for Robbo. You can set up his drums. And he goes, oh yeah. And that's how that began.
And isn't it amazing that this 15-year-old would go on to become a successful filmmaker, making movies like The Terminal with Tom Hanks. And then as a drummer, he would co-found a band with Gavin Rossdale, which would go on to become Bush, that sold 20 million albums. How crazy is it that the random 15-year-old that you guys were nice to?
Oh, this random 15-year-old, the things he's seen and experienced, man. You can't. I knew he was special. You know what I mean? You had that magnetic kind of personality, just drawn in. You can't help it. So I mean, it's. You knew he was he was a drummer. That was, of course, heavily inspired and influenced by Rob. So that's what brought him to us. But in meeting us, he met up with us at such a time, like at that marquee and from the Donington Festival, that we were there in England for about 3 or 4 weeks at that particular time. So we had a period of time that we got to know a lot of people and have met and are still friends with a lot of people that we met during those early weeks that we spent in London. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Okay, we were at the Donington Festival, and we see this guy who's standing by a safari van, literally a safari van, with all the camouflage on it and with the stretchy material that looks like army fatigues and nets and like a real safari van. I go, what the fuck? And as we're going by, he stops Dave or Squirrely to talk, and he goes, and Squirrely's going, come over here, right? So we all go over to the safari van, and there's this guy who's older guy, he's like 40, in his 40s, and he's telling us all these fucking, I'm friends with all these people, man, and my name is Philip Harvey. I'm the Queen's cousin. We go, what? Yeah, so we met the Queen's cousin, Philip Harvey. Lord Philip Harvey, I should add. And, well, what does that do? So we start hanging around with him. Well, he's friends with everybody and anybody that's famous. Okay, so like incredible. And just the kind of atmosphere that this guy and the parties. So we're at a party at his place, and the place is filled with all kinds of famous musicians, and he's bringing out this silver platters, literally a silver platter, and it had every kind of drug that you could want to do on a silver platter, literally on a silver platter. So there were straws if you want to do cocaine. There was piles of mushrooms if you want to do mushrooms. There's marijuana if you want to roll it, hashish if you want to roll it. Everything's there, man. Big pile of cocaine. Go ahead, knock yourself out. It's like, holy fuck, just a fucking total lunatic fucking guy. Anyway, so what ends up happening is Sasha meets that guy. We introduce Sasha to that guy. That's not a good thing. Well, it's a good thing, but it's not a good thing. So it's a mixture, you know what I mean? But that changed Sasha's life in a huge way. So his meeting us brought meeting of other people and other things that meant that shaped his life basically to a great degree. I mean, it's actually quite remarkable. So he got into all the you know, meeting and hanging out. Like he goes over to Lord Philip Harvey's place, and he's sitting at the kitchen table, and in walks this guy wearing a Mexican straw hat. And he sits down at the table and starts rolling a joint. And all of a sudden, Sasha realizes that's Jimmy Page. So, I mean, these kind of things, it's remarkable because then the serendipity or the turn of events and the way that things ended up. Here's Sasha and Jimmy Page face to face some 50 years later, basically. And he's going, I was that kid we were smoking the joint with at Philip Harvey's. And it's like, what the fuck? Yeah, if you can understand what I mean. And this is the kind of thing that Sasha lived. So what happened was, I mean, here's another beautiful thing that these are little intricacies and involve things of the type of background. Sasha comes home from school one day, and he comes home, and there's his mom sitting having a cup of tea with Dustin Hoffman. This is before we met Sasha. Okay, this is a year before we met Sasha. And what was Dustin Hoffman doing there? Well, Sasha's mother is a concert pianist, and she was working on a play. She was working, being the pianist on a play that Dustin Hoffman was in. So they just got to be kind of good friends, and she invited him over for a cup of tea. Okay, so Sasha comes home, and he's got an English composition work that he's been doing. So Dustin Hoffman goes, give me that. And he reads through it. And he goes, well, you got a spelling mistake here. Okay. He corrects it and does all this stuff. Anyway, so a number of months later, Sasha's coming to New York. And he was coming to visit his dad, that's where his dad was living. And what happened was he lost his plane ticket at Heathrow. So he's like Sasha's like freaking out, man. He's like wandering around looking for where he lost this thing. And sure enough, he bumps into Dustin Hoffman. Okay, so Dustin goes, oh, okay, Sasha, okay, let me help you. So he goes and helps him and takes him over to the American Airlines or wherever and gets him a new ticket, and everything's all good. And life goes on. Okay, now, many years later, of course, now the Anvil movies coming out, and it's going to be debuted in LA. So they happened to send out to all the different actors and whatnot throughout LA invitations to come see this rock documentary. And that, it has all the hype that it's done well in London, and then this, that, the other, at all these other film festivals. So it piqued Dustin Hoffman's interest enough. I'm going to go. So Dustin Hoffman comes, and of course, he has no idea that Sasha is the guy that made the movie. So doesn't even know. Okay. So he's watching the fucking movie and he's losing it. He's just losing it because he got so enthralled by it. And just at the end, of course, the screen comes up and there's Sasha and I sitting in the back seat of that van, and he takes a look and he goes, "That's the what?" What? You know what I'm saying? He realized that's the kid that I met at that woman's house having tea, and then helped him out at the airport. That's the what? Like it completely, and now he's in fucking tears. Okay. He sees Sasha, and the second he see him went over and just started hugging him. He's going, "This is so meant to be, man." It's like, anyway, so you could see that's weird stuff, man.
And he loved the movie, right?
Oh man, hugely. Well, I met all his entire family. I met Dustin Hoffman's entire family. Really, it's like my uncle. He feels like my uncle, and you sit and talk to him. The kid that he met grew up to do this. Pretty remarkable. You could see why he'd be so enthralled. And to him, he goes, "No wonder I gave him an A+." When he first met him, he marked him on something that he wrote on his composition. You know what I mean? So it's actually pretty remarkable that what that all was. And of course, Dustin Hoffman as a person is a pretty spiritual in a sense. He really he gave us, Rob and I, a whole lecture about things, that the universe guides things, that things are happen on purpose. It's not just a coincidence. And one of the interesting stories that he told Rob and I that in pertaining to this subject was that one day he's sitting at his beach house and he heard a lady screaming out near by the ocean side. So he runs out and he sees that there's a lady in anaphylactic shock. She's gotten bitten by a bee, and the other lady, "Help her, help her, help her." And of course, immediately Dustin runs back to the house and he yells up to his wife, Lisa, get your EpiPen. So he gets his wife's EpiPen because she has some kind of allergies, and he runs back out on the beach and he gives the lady a shot. And of course, now she's coming to, she's realizing what's going on, and she takes a look and she sees that it's Dustin Hoffman. And of course, in the Dustin Hoffman way, with his funny smirk on his face, she goes, "What a day to to shave my legs."
That's amazing.
And there's something that's so serious that he's just saved your life, and all you're worried about is whether you've shaved your legs. Okay, so we're cracking up just because the kind of stories that this guy's telling us. So he says he gets her up off the beach and he takes her back to the house and he sits her down. They're going to have a cup of tea and get her, her back and settled. She just had an attack, right? So he asks her, "Where are you from?" She goes, "Well, I'm from New York." So she goes, "Oh yeah, whereabouts in New York?" He goes, "Oh, the Lower East Side." He goes, "Oh, I grew up on the Lower East Side." She goes, "Oh yeah, I mean, what street?" And she names the street. And he goes, "Oh, I lived on that street." And he goes, "What number?" And she was living in the house he grew up in.
How is that possible?
Well, that's what he's saying. It is possible because she'd be dead. But she's connected in one way or another to the person who she was going to save her life. It's meant to be. It's just totally meant to be. And that reminded me of the fact that my brother had bought a property. here in Toronto that was originally owned by Sasha's grandparents.
These are crazy connections.
What does this mean? That what Dustin Hoffman was saying, things are meant to be. That's why they're happening. And it's not about coincidence. It's about, you're supposed to be doing this shit. It's supposed to be going on. You know, you're supposed to know this person, and there's a reason because of this, and everything else has a domino effect. Everything is affected to everything else. I mean, it's bizarre. It is.
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1-hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. We have a bunch of fan questions sent in, and I have the first one here. So this was sent in from Chaos Solos on Instagram, and his question is, how did you get your tone for the amazing lead at the start of Stop Me? That tone is killer.
I think that's a Flying V. That's a Gibson Flying V, and I believe I was using the neck pickup at the beginning of that solo, and that's through my Fender Twins. That at that particular time, I was using what is called Ice Cube. An Ice Cube is something that plugged into the in and out of the reverb section of the amplifier in the back. It was actually a pre-made plastic square little thing with two male phono plugs sticking out, which plugged into where the two male phono plugs go into the in and out of the reverb. So you plug this thing into the back of the amp and turn the reverb to 10, and your guitar is all it's all grinding. So that's how I got that. That's how the early tones were done. But it was later on, after Chris Tangarides suggested I go find a proper distortion pedal, as he would say. He'd say, you probably like that a lot more. And in eventuality, he was right. So that's what I've been using for 40 years now. So
he knew what he was talking about. We have another fan question. This is from Bob Paulin. His question, well, there's a statement and a question. He says, the Welland House Hotel strip club DJ used to play March of the Crabs every night, and the girls hated it. But we agreed it was the best metal instrumental ever. Will you ever do a YouTube tutorial for us guitar players who follow you?
I don't know.
Just something to keep in mind that the fans are requesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think somebody's going to have to ask me to do it, because I'm not going to sit down and just decide I'm going to do a tutorial on how to play March of the Crabs. Nah, I don't know if I can be bothered. But I tell you this, I'm on Cameo, and what happens is if people request me to say hello or to wish somebody birthday or an anniversary or whatever, I play March of the Crabs from top to bottom. That's part of that's how I do it. That's how I do all the cameos.
That would be worth it for sure. To wrap up talking about the Metal on Metal album, there's some critical acclaim that I want to share. So the album was featured in Rock Hard Magazine's book, The 500 Greatest Rock and Metal Albums of All Time, and it was on Guitar World's list of the 25 greatest rock guitar albums of 1982. What does it mean to you when you see that incredible acclaim for your music?
To be really honest with you, it's very far. That stuff's very far and in between. You're certainly picking some choice things to say that I'm included in, but in 99.9% of the time, we are not included. we've had very, very limited access to the USA over the years. It's not easy to find Anvil music in America, and never has been. And to the point where our first 3 albums are still not available domestically in the USA.
You're saying for them to go purchase in a store?
Yeah, you can't find it.
Oh,
Not
man.
you'd have to order it from Unidisc up here in Canada. So get ready to pay some tariffs.
Later on, some of the songs from Metal on Metal were featured in The Simpsons, in the video game Brutal Legend that had Jack Black starring in it, and also in the movie It from Stephen King. What was the experience like seeing your music in those different pop culture mediums?
Oh, that's can't be better. Come on, we were in the Green Hornet. And we were actually supposed to be playing Metal on Metal in the Green Hornet, but they edited it. They had almost a 3-hour movie, and Michel Gondry, he shortened the movie by about an hour and a half. So part of it was a performance by Anvil in where the club burnt down. If anybody remembers the movie, the club burnt down. They show Anvil playing, but it's on a monitor screen in the guy's office. Anyway, the music wasn't there, but we were.
You made an appearance.
I made an appearance. Yeah, that stuff's awesome. We were in. We did Slip Kid. We did the song Slip Kid, which is a song by The Who, and Frankie Perez, who sang for Slash, was the singer. So we were the band, and he sang Slip Kid. And there's a version that was used on Sons of Anarchy. And in fact, we were in episode 2, season 2. We were gun runners.
That's amazing. In 1983, you guys released your 3rd album, Forged in Fire. At this point, we're seeing a trend where the album titles all have 3 words, with the first and third word having the same letter to start.
By the time Forged in Fire, that was to the point where now we're doing it on purpose.
And you've done it on purpose through the whole 20 album discography.
No, yeah, we've done it on purpose ever since the beginning, but we didn't think of it that way. When we came up with Hard and Heavy, it just sounded good. It had nothing to do with, we got to come up with a title with an H, you know what I mean? It just happened. And then, as I said, when I came up with the title Metal on Metal, that was also something that just happened. It wasn't with the idea that I'm going to write an album or a song that uses an alliteration. It was that the song, the riff sounded like it was going metal on metal. That's what made it. But by the time we got to Forged in Fire, it became we've got to find something that works with the letters, and what can we call this album? And we had a lot of different ideas that we never used. You know what I mean? But then we came up with Forged in Fire, and then it was a real struggle to come up with an album cover, because it's not particularly, and I still don't think it's particularly showing an anvil being on fire is not necessarily the greatest idea of Forged in Fire. I don't know. Anyway, but that's what we did, and that's put an anvil in the forge. Okay, well, that's what it was.
Has it been hard finding names for the next 17 albums to keep that
hell
trend?
No, man. We've got there's still about over 1,000 that are written down somewhere. You know what I mean? That we just happen to use whatever seems to suit us at any particular time, you know. And sometimes you can make up a new one. It's unlimited. Going back to the O.J. Simpson, they called him the Butcher of Brentwood. You know what I mean? How many times they use alliterations for things?
Also in 1983, so you guys signed a management contract with Aerosmith's manager. This is kind of the start of like a 3 or 4 year period where you guys are in limbo, where he gets it that you're released from Attic Records with the promise that you're going to sign with a major label. He never did get you signed to another major label, so you're just stuck without a label. Do you think that that period where you're just in limbo, that actually is part of the reason why when other bands were taking off, you guys were left behind a little bit?
Not a little bit. We were gone for 4 years, 4 of the most important years of the metal history. So you lose all your momentum. That's what happened. I can't change it, but I rectified it by doing a movie. So I might not have the financial gain that I might have had, but I certainly have the notoriety and the credit. So at the end of the day, I still feel like I mission accomplished. But that's all besides the point. Did that have an effect on it? Damn right. It killed it. It killed it. And what's the real truth? You know, a label that Attic Records sold our first and second album to, that they licensed it out to a label in France, and it what they did is they printed picture discs, and usually picture discs were almost double the price of what a regular, like the regular copy, like go get Number of the Beast and picture disc. It's a collector's item. It costs extra money, right? That's just the way that stuff worked. But in this particular case, they're selling them at half the price of the actual ones in the stores. And there was supposed to be a ceiling of how much they were allowed to produce. There was supposed to have only been 1,000 printed, which was supposed to be, okay, we'll have 1,000 copies of the picture disc, which keeps the price up, right? Because it's supposed to be kept rare. They went the other way. We never got paid for any of it. They pressed well over 1 million. You can find picture discs in China. And that's what we were signing in China. How many people live in China? Why do people know who Anvil is in China? Because they could buy our album back in the 80s for half the price of everybody else's. So what did that do? What did that do? They put the record out worldwide. You can find the picture discs all across the USA. So now our first and second albums are basically worthless, right? Because you could buy them for $5 domestically in the United States. Okay, I mean, once they're gone, they're gone. I mean, good luck finding copies of this, but many, many, many people in the USA have one of these copies. Of course, not millions, but a good substantial amount that didn't show up in record sales at all. And this, is the kind of thing where my dad wished that he knew about it and he would have done something about it. But he didn't know about it, and I never told him about it, and until later, way after the fact. And at which point he goes, "I would have hired a lawyer." I go, "Yeah, right, whatever." So that's what basically happened. So in doing that, when David Krebs, the so-called Aerosmith manager, went to the major labels, they said, "Sure, we'll take Anvil. Give us the first 3 albums for free." Of course, they're not going to offer money for stuff that's already out. Why would they? Right? As well as there's a certain amount of greed. I'm not paying for these, you guys pay for them. It's not fair that they get it for free, right? It isn't. Because that means I'm not going to get any royalties still not getting any royalties for my first albums. It's pretty unfair to Anvil, right? So those deals never went down. That's why the first three albums are still not available in the USA, other than if you can find the picture disc. I mean, there's also the 1,000 copies of Metal on Metal that got stolen out of the back of the truck. That's a whole other issue. Yeah, we've had a lot of things happen.
So many crazy stories. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it's just endless.
In 1987, you guys released Strength of Steel. This is Anvil's first album to crack the Billboard Top 200 in the US. Do you remember finding out that you had an album that had charted on the Billboard charts in the US?
Yeah, but it was still grossly overlooked.
Didn't sell like you hoped it would sell.
No,
Hmm.
nothing really worked out. No, nothing really worked out from those days. We were owed money that we never got paid. Still haven't been paid. Yeah, it's still ongoing BS. It's music business. That's what it is, and that's what my belief is. And is whatever you get for what you're doing is all you're going to get. You're not going to get other monies. Coming from record company aspect, whatever they paid you initially is all you're going to get for the most part.
Just the advance up front.
Yeah, and you're not really doing anything but paying for the recording with it. So it's I'm in the merchandise business. Want to buy a T-shirt?
That's why the touring is so important.
Yeah, it is, and as well as, of course, how much you're getting paid per gig, but that makes it possible to pay for your hotels and your gas and everything that it costs to go tour, and paying your roadies to move your equipment, and paying your merchandise person to sell your stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's a business.
So we have a fan question sent in here from Suresh Mishra. And Suresh's question is, what's the one thing you attribute most to your persistence to keep making music and touring the world?
It's an inner hunger that I never want to be left behind. I think that the rough times make you even that much more hungry. I think that's why Anvil have 20 CDs, and other bands of the same era have half. And I'm not sure, but I would say I probably have recorded more music than Metallica, and they're a lot more successful. So,
well,
I don't know
20 albums, that's got to be over 200 songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's unbelievable. I have some kind words sent in here from a metal band that put out their debut EP in 1983. So this is sent in from Michael Wilton, the guitarist for Queensryche, that went on to sell 30 million albums. And Michael says, though I don't know them personally, we've crossed paths over the years. They rock and they put on a killer show, and he put the metal fingers up, an emoji. So that's from Michael Wilton.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think I've met him, not personally, but that's very nice. I thank him for that.
He just wanted to share that that he's seen you guys, and you put on a great show. Moving through the discography, 1992, Worth the Wait. Man, I love this album. Is this the most underrated and underappreciated album in the entire discography?
Could be. Very few people ever comment on it or even mention songs off of it, which I find remarkable, because it's interesting. Somebody who overlooked it and then realized it was Johnny Z. I took that album to Johnny Z and I said, come on, man, sign this record. He wouldn't sign it. Wouldn't sign it to Megaforce Records, which is a real shame. And it wasn't until like 20 years after the fact, maybe a year before he passed away, he calls me up and he goes, Lips, man, that song Sins of the Flesh, oh my God, that's one of the greatest fucking metal songs I've ever heard in my life. I can't believe I didn't realize this back in its day. I go, well, that's the way it goes, man. Yeah, that's the way it goes. Even the biggest fans of Anvil listened to that album and went, whatever. Beyond my comprehension. It really is beyond my comprehension. I don't know why. And certainly the singing, I think it was some very interesting stuff going on with all that. Yeah, and guitar playing, very, very, very progressive, actually. I think it's one of the only songs, one of the only albums that has a song with acoustic guitar on it. You know, we did a lot of interesting stuff on that record.
Yeah, the album kicks off with the song Infanticide. After I listened to that song, I message you being like, this is a master class in guitar playing. This song is incredible. The album has like extended solos. Some songs have 2 guitar solos in them. What can you say? This is the only album that had Sebastian Marino featured as well on guitar. Is that correct?
Right.
So what can you say about him and you guys together?
That's because of him. It was that way. Because Sebastian, I worked with and worked through things and created things to bolster what he wanted and to what we both wanted. I'd arrange things so that stuff worked. In Infanticide, as a matter of fact, he goes, I need this rhythm pattern or these chord patterns because I want to create a solo that's going to go over this. So, I said, okay, because I had a lot straighter of a rhythm pattern for his solo section. And he goes, no, I want use a different pick pattern, use this backwards one instead. And then I'll play to accentuate all that. So I adjust things, customize them so that he'd be happy and comfortable playing a solo on it. You know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily writing for myself. It was catering. I've got another guy, so I was actually customizing stuff so that it worked out even better. So that's partially writing. It's not really songwriting. It's solo writing, which is another world. That's another world. 2 separate things. A song is the song, but the different sections can have different flavors and different things done to them, so that they have, even though the arrangement is the same, the patterns are slightly different to customize for the guy who's going to play over top of it. It's hard to go put everything into words, but I worked with him through what needed to be done. The back and forth solos, we both had to be there for each section, and we did them piece by piece. So that, I do a piece and then he'd do an answer to it. Then I do another piece and then he'd do, so that you're actually creating the finished product right there. That you're working on it together and it's cohesive. Yeah.
So in 1996, you guys released Plugged In Permanent. Man, I love the catchphrase, fuck off, I'm trying to sleep. Every time I heard that, I would start chuckling, and I thought, that's cool, man. I love that. And also listening to that album, I thought the drums were unbelievable. Like, a good pair of headphones listening, I felt like, how is it even possible that a human being can play drums like that? Did you find that the drumming stood out on that album more than others, or it's just something that I thought?
It's the most over-the-top thrash that we ever went, was on that record. And it was out of the frustration of, well, we tried to be really musical and ornate and progressive. Let's go harder and nastier. Let's use using thrash beats. Let's make all the songs tuned down, like "Love Me When I'm Dead." You know what I mean? "Love Me When I'm Dead" was the first, I think, the first time we used tuned down guitars, and they weren't really completely tuned down. It just the E string was tuned down to D, and we just played, which gives a deeper tone, and generally darker, and because the songs were all very, very high speed and out of control arrangements, that it's a very thrash album, and many people were turned off and said that doesn't sound like Anvil anymore, and thus coming up with the saying "too heavy for wimps." The actual label, Massacre, had put out a T-shirt with "Worth the Wait" called "Too Heavy for Wimps," and it was from the backlash of people going, "It's too fucking heavy. Anvil's gotten too heavy. They sound like starting to sound like Slayer, and that's too heavy."
It's metal, baby. You can be
Yeah.
heavy.
Well, it was us going, well, fuck you. Here we're trying to be so fucking fancy and whatnot. Now we're just going to become fucking full throttle, fucking go nuts. And the songs can be 10 minutes long. It doesn't matter. You're not, it's self-indulgence. We went through that, and with absolute anger and angst towards the whole idea of ever being commercial. I'm going to do these songs on an acoustic guitar. It's like, I'd rather be dead. Let's crush an acoustic guitar with an anvil.
In 1997, you guys released Absolutely No Alternative.
I would say that was a continuation of Plugged In Permanent.
A part of the continuation is I have some kind words sent in from someone that was around for the recording of both of those albums. This is from Darren Barry, recording and mixing engineer.
Yeah.
So Darren says, Lips is the quintessential metal frontman and guitarist. Trends come and go, but Lips and Anvil have continued to put out and perform speed and thrash metal classics at a pace that few can match. I was fortunate to record and mix Plugged In Permanent in 96 and Absolutely No Alternative in 97. His energy and enthusiasm in the studios is infectious, and each day working with the band was a thrill. So thank you for the chance to get to work with you, and keep rocking, Lips. So that's from Darren Barry.
Wow. Yeah, Darren did a great job. So something to consider, maybe even to do the next album. It's something to consider. Yeah, things have changed a lot since those days. Technically speaking, I have no idea where and what he's doing, but he was really great guy to work with. Him and Alfie, the two guys.
I don't know if you're in the loop with Alf, but he started the super group Envy of None with Rush guitarist Alex Lifeson. So he's gone on to have all this success with this super group. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, wow. That's what Alfie's doing now?
That's what Alfie's doing now. So Envy of None have put out 2 different albums, and they're on lots of acclaim lists, and they're showing up on the charts. And it's always great to hear more stuff from Alex Lifeson.
Well, that's nice that he's part of something like that. That's really nice.
So we're going to jump around a little bit because I want to make sure we have time to talk about the documentary, the new album, and you have some upcoming shows. So This Is 13 was released in 2007. Can you share the story of, you guys had been struggling for years and you send a demo to Chris Sangarides. He listens to it. He gives you a call back and says he thinks there's potential here. Can you share that story a little bit for our listeners that maybe didn't see the documentary?
Well, 13 ended up completely written before we went in. other than the lyrics for Flying Blind. I'm trying to remember. Might have been one other. I think Flying Blind and Feed the Greed. I wrote the lyrics right there and in the studio. But that all that stuff was done before we went in, and it was the director of the movie that really wanted us to do the album with Chris Tangarides, because I really had my intention was not that at all. I probably would have done another album with Darren or with Pierre out in Quebec. I don't know. I don't know what I might have done at that point. We were in a transitional period. It was like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to record it? How are we going to? But once the movie idea came in, then the stakes became way, way higher. Way, way higher. So you can't just hire a no-name, something that no one knows, somebody that no one knows, especially if you're going to do a movie and show the recording. You better have somebody that's got some kind of credibility. Considering everything that we've been through then and thinking about it and discussing it, Sasha said, go back to Chris. He says, it can't hurt to ask him. And I go, and Sasha, I've been bugging, looking for his address for years. I can't find him. He goes, do another fucking search and maybe you'll find him. So sure enough, I do another search and I find his manager. So I write to the manager and I go, I need a producer, man. And then, of course, then I start hearing from Chris. What do you got? What's up? What is this? What that? The other? Okay, he says, make a demo. Oh, fuck. I hate making demos. Like, I hate it. Can't stand it.
What do you hate about it?
Well, you're blowing all the cookies, man. That's when you're most inspired, is when you first record it. And you're going to lose that. You're going to lose that. You lose that excitement. But I realized I did live off the floor. I didn't even send them the singing.
And how many songs were on that demo that you sent him?
I think there were like 15 songs.
Oh, wow. It's like the whole album almost, or more.
Oh yeah, everything was there. And the lyrics were all written. I just hadn't gone into the studio, and I did not want to. The whole idea was, do not sing until it's time to sing. Learn what you got to sing, but don't sing until it's time, because then you got all the opportunity to make up melodies and work with a producer and work through it. At least that's what I came to believe was the best way to go. It isn't necessarily the best way to go, but it's a way to go. I sent him, I think, all the instrumentals, and of course, he goes, I believe you got something. I think he would have said that anyway, because quite honestly and frankly, he's looking for work. And I'm looking for somebody to do the job. So it's not necessarily whether he wanted to do it because he liked the music or not. I mean, that's the real truth. That's what I believe to be the truth. You know what I'm saying? Because as far as I was always concerned with Chris Tangarides, it was always about money. Had little to do with anything else. And that's what I actually still believe. So yeah, he was interested in having us, in making money from us, absolutely. And certainly the music is good enough, and we're good enough to be able to play it, and so that therefore he's going to be able to get the job done. So yeah, sure, come on, let's do it. The price was way, way hefty.
So this was 13,000 euros, correct? And you have to somehow
no,
figure...
that's not euros. That's pounds.
Pounds, okay. And it was years ago, so with inflation today, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, and what did we get for it? And how much work was it? And how did he delegate those hours? it was very, very, very trying and difficult. It was one of the longest processes of recording an album I've ever done, and actually is the longest process of making an album I've ever done. Never taken that kind of double or triple the amount of time that I would normally spend. And that's because of Chris. That's not because we weren't ready to work or we weren't prepared or anything like that. That's how long it took to do. Plus the fact he recorded everything old school. He didn't edit. He recorded everything till it was perfect.
So a full
He didn't
take.
edit it. He didn't edit it together or cut and paste or do what they do. Or, you know, if it's out of tune, it's out of tune, you got to play it again. There's no such thing as correction. You know what I mean? They didn't have correctors. Totally done like it's an analog album. So, you know, every chorus, every vocal, you had to physically do it. Nothing was cut and paste. So that takes a long time, especially harmonies. You know what I mean? It took a hell of a long time to do the vocals, weeks.
One of the more touching moments in the documentary is when you find out that you have to come up with all that money that you don't have, and then your big sister Rhonda lends you the money. That was super touching. What did it mean to you when a family member just loves you that much and steps up for
It's
you?
somebody that I felt comfortable with asking. It wasn't an exorbitant amount. It was an amount that I knew I'd have no problem paying back. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. We had the money back within the first 2 weeks of putting it on sale. It was on the internet for 2 weeks and I had all the money to pay her back. So it didn't take long, that's for sure. But I knew that anyway. You know that. We're a brand name. Anvil is a brand name. It means that at the minimum, you're going to sell to your fan base. That's what it means. And I knew that I have a fan base. How many times do I have to prove it? It was the 13th time, right? So what is there to prove? I knew that. That's why I said to my sister, there's no question I'm going to pay you back. I just haven't got the money to do this right now. Just lend me the money and I'll pay it right back, man. It shouldn't take long. And it didn't. Because, of course, how long is it going to take? You're selling these records, I think at the time was $20 a piece, right? How long is it going to take you to come up with 10 grand? Not that long, man. Sell 5,000 copies, which is only a fraction of our fan base. You've paid it back, right?
Right.
So that's how that ended up working. And actually, to tell you the honest to God truth, to this day, 13 is the biggest money-making album we've ever done.
Because it was self-financed?
We own it. The only place you can get This Is 13 is from us. And you can't even stream it.
Is that so more people buy it because they can't stream it?
I don't know. All I know is we play every night. When we play every night, we sell This Is 13. It's no problem. It's still one of the biggest selling because it's in the movie. And it's a great album. How about that? There's something to be said about that too.
And it sounds great.
It has a lot of great things on it. Could it have been better? Yes. But that comes down to Chris Tangarides. And in my personal humble opinion at this point in time, is that could have been better.
In what way? Less songs or different takes or
mixing?
Oh, it could sound better with the mixing.
Yeah, the mixing. And it wasn't necessarily the mixes themselves. It was the final process that where things went not as well. No point talking about it. No one knows except me, and I'm living with it, and it doesn't matter. And it's the biggest selling record. But there's a part of what happened that left me disappointed. Let's just put it that way. And it made it impossible for us to ever do another record with Chris. The people that we were involved with absolutely said, no way that you're going to do another album with that guy. Can't do it. On a business level, it just didn't make sense. And that's, I'm not saying that Chris did a bad job. That's not, it wasn't even really what I'm talking about, had nothing to really do with Chris, more about where we did the mix and what they gave me as my copy. I mean, Chris probably should have double checked things before we called it, before we did the wrap, before we said we're all done and everything gets pulled out. And, you know what I mean? Before they tear down the studio. But that's not the way things went. There's a couple of things that the studio people did, not Chris, that really caused some stressful stuff. But it still got rectified and fixed and okay, and it came out all right. It's not really too detrimental. It might have been a little bit louder. The actual mastering could have been louder, but it couldn't be because of what we were given as our master copies from the studio. Anyway, that's nor here nor there. It's a great album.
So let's talk a little bit more about the documentary before we wrap up. So you guys finish the filming of it, there's the editing, and then eventually a few years later it comes out and it gets widespread critical acclaim. It gets a standing ovation at Sundance. It has a 98% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The Times called it the greatest film ever made about rock and roll. Rolling Stone called it the year's most praised rock documentary. How good did it feel after all that process to get that feedback and to have this resurgence for the band where all along you've been putting out great music, but now people are coming around to it because of this promotional tool you have with the documentary?
Yeah, and it worked brilliantly because here we are almost 20 years after the fact, and I haven't stopped working and putting records out, so it made a difference, no question about it. I don't have a regular job. My job at Choice Children Catering is long over. Haven't been there in 20 years now. So pretty commendable that Anvil is I made it in a certain sense. I'm making a living from my music. That's making it.
The documentary appealed to so many people because it's not even about metal. It's about the human spirit and dreams and friendship.
The movie appealed to far larger of an audience than just the metal audience. The metal audience is only a small fraction, actually, to be really truthful about it. The movie has been seen by millions of people worldwide, millions, man. No question about it. It's still on some of the streaming stuff
Sites.
on TV and stuff like that. And it will eventually end up back on Netflix. Netflix is just one of the many. There's Prime, there's Amazon, there's whatever. There's lots of places you can rent movies and watch movies from, right?
I saw the documentary when it first came out. I watched it again a few months ago, and then I watched it a couple days ago just in preparation for this interview. And I think what touches me the most is that most people give up on their dream within a year if it doesn't happen, or maybe 5 years. And some people, despite not finding success, might hold on for 10 years and then give up that it's just not meant for them. And then in this documentary, you see you where even after decades, you never waver in your faith in this dream and this vision you have. And then because of this documentary, you do achieve all those dreams. Like it was all meant to be. After all of this, it came true. And man, it's so inspiring and it's so touching. And for me, that is the heart of the movie, is the dream that somehow this unwavering belief that you had for 50 years. I don't even know if there's a question here. I just have to say that as a statement.
I don't even know how to answer it because you take yourself for granted. You don't think of, it's not like I'm impervious to the pain that it caused me. I felt bad a lot of times, man. It was not easy. It's did I feel like quitting? It quit me many times. You know what I mean? Disappointed me over and over and over again. It still does. What makes me want to go? I don't even know. Sometimes I can't even answer that. I can't answer it. It's what I love to do. It's who I am. It's how I get along in my life. It's what makes my life worthwhile existing. That's why I'm here. It doesn't matter how many I sell. It's whether I created the music and got it recorded. That's the success. The success is not the monetary or how many it sold or what place you're playing this week. It's about that you are here this week. You are playing this week. You are recording another album. You are existing. It's about that and continuation. And it's another day. And tomorrow will be another one. You know, that's more about the way it is. And it's my existence that we're talking about. Why would I stop wanting to exist? You want to exist. That's what you do. And the things that give you happiness in your life in a general sense, I get a lot of satisfaction and enjoyment out of playing my instrument and being Anvil, you know, making that sound, being responsible for it, and you know, to a great degree, that and there's a good word, responsible. So I'm responsible for its lack of success, as well as all of its success. But I'm responsible for all of it, and it's a good place to be. What are you going to say? If I make a shitty album, I made a shitty album. Oh well, I'll make a better one next time. And that's really the way to look at it, because the job never stops. You never stop being a creator of music. It's what you do. It's like living and breathing and a heart beating. That's what you do. It's not like there's a choice. At least I don't see that there's a choice. And I aimed and directed my life so that I could do it. And that's what most people just don't want to do. They don't want to sacrifice things. They look for money. That's the biggest mistake that you have if you're an artist. If you're doing it to make money, go do something else that does make money. Why would you pick something that's so difficult to make money at? Like if painting a picture or drawing or singing, or they're all art. There's billions and billions of people that do that. And you don't make money from it. And it's competitive. So why worry about it? Why think about it in that terms? I'm going to write a song that's going to make millions of dollars. No, you're not. And even if you did, how are you going to get people to listen to it? Like it's about. I like to create music. Since I was a little kid, that's what I like to do. That's how I learned how to play, was by creating music and sounds. That's what I was drawn towards it, and that's what I'm drawn towards. Not how much money it's going to make. The same things that spark my interest are still the same things. I pick up the guitar and I come up with a new riff that I've never played before. And I go, wow, listen to that. Oh, that's really fucking cool, man. And that's the next thing. That's the next thing. That's why you exist, is for that. So that's kind of how I kind of perceive it all. And those who give up, that's they never had enough. They never had enough nerve to begin with. That's why they gave it up. If you actually discovered about the people that give up are the people that are the people that we're never going to get anywhere anyway. Because in order to get anywhere, you have to have that. If you don't, you're not going to get. You're not getting there. You're not going to make it at all. That's self-belief. When Sasha went and did the movie, the Hitchcock movie, he directed the movie Hitchcock, which starred Anthony Hopkins, Sir Anthony Hopkins. Well, it's interesting, he's sitting having a meeting with Anthony Hopkins, and the reason that Anthony Hopkins got in touch with him, he saw the Anvil movie. And he goes, if you can get that kind of performances out of people who aren't even actors, I got to work with you. So he suggested to the movie company and whatnot, let's get this guy Sasha Gervasi to direct Hitchcock. So anyway, they're sitting down and having the discussion about doing the movie, and this is when Sasha first met Anthony Hopkins, and of course Anthony was so blown away by the Anvil movie. He says, I want you to call Lips. I want to talk to him. So imagine getting a phone call from Hannibal Lecter, okay? Because that's what the fuck happened. I answer the phone and I go, hello, Lips. This is Tony. And I go, what the fuck? You're Tony Hopkins. I'm going, holy fuck, man. He goes, I just want to tell you, I didn't get anywhere in the movie industry until I got my first break when I was 40 years old. And I relate to what your story says. Never give up. And that's what I'm saying, that it doesn't matter who you are or what you've done, or that's to make it or to get anywhere in the industry, you have to the be all, do all to your dying day. You got to have that attitude. And if you don't, you're not going nowhere. You have to be driven. You have to be driven. No question about it. And to a certain level, like narcissistic. It comes with it. It comes with it. How are you going to get anybody to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself? I mean, Black Sabbath had that in their lyrics. You know what I mean? Years ago. I mean, I can't think of the particular line, but if you don't believe in yourself, well, you haven't got anything, really. And that goes for any kind of success. Somebody who wants to make it in school and scholastic things and being a doctor or something, that doesn't fly into your head. You got to study, got to work at it. And you got to have that do or die fucking attitude. I'm going to do this. And a belief that I can do this. That's what it really is. It's at the heart of most of it.
Man, every time I watch the documentary, I cry, I get emotional. Here, I just want to share the three moments in the documentary that really are touching. So when you say that, hey, one of the solutions to my struggles is I could just jump off a cliff. And then Rob says, well, no, you can't, because I'd be there to stop you. And then the second one is when you guys are fighting in the studio and Rob says, man, you're always hard on him. And you start to cry and you say, well, that's because you're my best friend and I love you and there's no one else I can talk to about my struggles with the band. That gets me. And in the very end of the movie, after all the struggles, where you're booked at a festival, you find out you're on at 11:35 a.m. for a metal festival, and you think, oh, here we go again, another empty arena. And you get out there and it's packed with an enthusiastic crowd of Anvil fans. And then after the amazing show, you guys are out there smiling, so happy that things actually are turning in the right direction. That gets me as well. Do you find that those are the three moments you hear about the most from fans when they watch the movie?
Yeah, well, there's a number of different touching things that have a lasting effect. Like family's important shit, man. When my sister's there and she's almost in tears talking about our childhood and stuff like that. I mean, there's some. It's a human emotion movie, and the truth be told, if you haven't got emotion in a movie, you haven't got much of a movie. And I think Anthony Hopkins was right. Sasha was able to capture that stuff. It's miraculous. It really is. What happened in that movie is nothing less than miraculous. It really is in so many ways, and magical, and maybe like Dustin Hoffman suggests, it was all meant to be. The way that everything, the whole like life plan. It's like we've all done this, and we're looking back at it. It's almost like that, rather than we just lived it and it happened. It's almost like it all was supposed to happen. That's how it kind of feels, man.
So there's just a few more things I'd like to cover before we wrap up. In 2013, you guys released the album Hope and Hell. And I have some kind words sent in from someone, again, that was a part of the recording process. So this is from Mayor Applebaum, who was the mastering engineer on that album. And this is what he says. Steve appreciates and respects his fans and supporters. They are dear to him. He has been there when a lot of big and small bands started out, and he continues to do his art and deliver it to the fans, old and young. Not many artists and musicians continue this path, especially going through hardships and the thick and thin. But he stayed and kept the wheels turning. It was a pleasure working with Anvil on the mastering of the Hope and Hell album, and it's always fun seeing them when they're in town and we meet up. So that's from Mayer.
Oh, okay. That's a great guy. Really nice guy.
Since 2020, you guys have put out Legal at Last. You put out Impact is Imminent. And then the newest album from last year is One and Only. How has the reception been so far for the new album since it's been released? There's been singles, there's been music videos. What have you been hearing from the fans?
I think that they like this album. But the first initial video got a lot of people not happy. And I don't know why that was. Feed your fantasy for whatever reason. And I guess it's close to the being commercial in a certain sense. I didn't do it on purpose. It just, the song came together like that. I don't think it was a good idea to have had that song as the first single, and it shouldn't have been a single. It shouldn't have even been, maybe it shouldn't have even been exposed at all. Although there are a number of people that like the song, and I'm not going to, but that's like every Anvil album. You know what I mean? Everybody's got different favorites, because truth be told, that each song are very individual. I mean, everybody can say all your albums are the same. No, they're not. They're really not. And in fact, even from song to song, they're very, very, very different. The variety that's on One and Only is insane. It's the same kind of variety that was there in the early days, that each of our songs is an island unto itself. They really are. They're not really two. You find two songs that are more similar on two different albums rather than on the same album. When you have the one album, all the songs are different from each other, but you find songs on those albums that are similar to each other. If you understand what I mean, like new versions of March of the Crabs, like as an example. You might say that Swing Thing is a new version of March of the Crabs. You might say, that we reuse a lot of feels. The riffs might not be the same, but the actual feel, the rhythm of the rhythm of the piece of music is in the same similar fashion. But that's like every band. We have our own thing, our own sound where we pick certain tempos and stuff to play in, and it gives us a sort of, it gives you your uniqueness to a certain degree, right?
Some people complain when an Anvil album is too heavy, and then some people complain when it's too commercial. So you can't win anyways. You might as well just record what you want to record.
Well, that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And I'm not doing it to insult anybody. I'm making a different song. You know, uh, Feed Your Fantasy is not going to be the same as Truth is Dying, but completely different songs. But for whatever reason, Truth is Dying, people like that one a lot more than the other one. Okay. They're just songs. You can like one and not the other. I don't care. You know what I mean? What are you going to, what can be said about it?
So we have a fan question here from Emilio Durazio. And Emilio's question is, what is the next project Anvil will be working on? So is there anything you can share with the Anvil fans?
Well, we're going to begin working on our 21st album. That's supposed to happen, and that will come out as our 50th anniversary. For whatever reason or whatever that means. So what? Everybody's 50 years old. That comes from the old days. If you last long enough, okay. Is that going to mean that it's going to be better? I don't know. Does it mean that it's going to sell more? I don't know. I we're going to put out another album. What else is there to do? I'm just continuing on. Everybody else can make up the hoopla and the bullshit, in and around it. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm continuing what I love, like I have since the first album. So what's the difference? It's just a number, It's just a number.
So I'd love to talk about your two shows that are coming up next month or just in a few weeks from now. So you're playing in Toronto on July 11th and you're playing here in my hometown of Ottawa on July 12th. If our listeners right now go online and purchase a ticket to these shows, what can they expect if this is their first Anvil concert?
Well, most of the people that would be coming, it will be their first time. Because I would say good 70% of the people that come to see us, it's their first time there. And what can I say? It's going to be one of the best times you've ever had at a show. I guarantee it. You're actually going to walk out of there feeling good, which is unusual you know what I mean? That's unusual. It's a good feeling. It makes you feel good to see the band. You have a good time. It's entertaining. It doesn't bring you down. It actually makes you feel good. And that's a good thing. That's more than most.
So we got the lips guarantee that you're going to have a great time at the concerts. And the final quote sent in here is someone that their first concert ever was Anvil. So this is from Chuck Daly, who played bass for the multi-platinum band I Mother Earth from here in Canada and the Salads. And here's what Chuck says. He's remembering the good times. He says, the first concert I ever went to was Anvil with Sacrifice and Razor at the concert hall in Toronto. I was 12 years old, wide-eyed, and walking into the fire with my buddy Dave Ziemba from the Salads. I had tickets for Bad Brains originally, but HR didn't make it across the border, so Anvil stepped in and popped my cherry instead. And honestly, I'm stoked they did. It was loud, intense, and a little scary at first, but holy hell, it lit me up. I remember standing there grinning like an idiot, horns in the air, feeling this wild surge of energy I'd never felt before. That night carved something into me. It made me want to play my music loud and live with the people I love. It taught me to go hard, mean it, and never fake it. That vibe, that fire, it's still with me, burned into my bones. I've still got the ticket stub and a photo album on my shelf, and every time I see it, I remember the exact moment it all clicked. So thank you, Anvil, for showing me how it's done, for setting me on the right path, and for kicking the whole damn thing off the right way. Cheers. Chuck Daly, I Mother Earth.
Wow. I don't know what to say. Jeez. Okay. Thanks, man. Wow. That's
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, so there's no better way to promote a concert than have a testimonial from a professional multi-platinum musician that swears it changed his life and sent him on a path of becoming a full-time musician. So
Well, I guess I've done that enough for other musicians and then myself, right? I could start talking like I did initially when I was talking about Lemmy. I could talk about Black Sabbath too, huge, massive influence. And I got to meet them even before I got to even a recording musician. I met them in just after we started the band, and we hadn't recorded anywhere, and we hadn't even think. I went to see them in 1977, or opening with Van Halen opening, and I got to meet them because when I was talking about the Gasworks, the beginning of all this about getting our deal and all that stuff. This guy was working at the Gasworks. This guy, Bess, was working at the Gasworks at the time when Never Say Die was being recorded in Toronto. Geezer and Tony were coming to the Gasworks every afternoon for lunch and for beers. So he got to be friendly with them, and they hired him as a guitar roadie. The doorman from the Gasworks gets hired for Black Sabbath because he's a left-handed guitarist. So that's how he got to know Black Sabbath. Now, Black Sabbath have a book that talk about Bess, and he's the guy that they put in the back of a transport truck with all the equipment to smuggle across the Scottish border. And as well as I do, there is no border between Scotland and England. But they told him that there was, and that he has to hide. When he got to Scotland, they had the police come and take him down to the station and hold him there till after the show. So he sat on the bench in the police station for like 8 hours while the band set up, did their show, and finished. And finally, Tony and Geezer came and picked him up from the police station. But this is a really comical. That's who this guy Bess is. So he becomes our light man, and he's the guy that the Gasworks wouldn't let us play because he's working for us. Kind of interesting, isn't it? I haven't seen this guy in 30 plus years or something, but it's interesting that the people that it tied together, So from that, we ended up going to see Black Sabbath with Van Halen opening, okay, in Niagara Falls. So we got to meet Black Sabbath in the 70s when Ozzy's last shows, okay. That's what we got to meet Black Sabbath. So then, of course, years later, I'd even done shows. And of course, Tony knows who I am. He knows that I'm the fucking punk kid that he met at that show back in Niagara Falls in 1977. He knows that. It's just that I was friends with Dimp, the guy that they used to call Dimp. It's actually quite remarkable how things. So yeah, when I talk about these great opportunities, that was the biggest opportunity. That was really the first time I'd ever been on a big stage to see what it looks like. Imagine watching Black Sabbath and Van Halen doing sound checks. And that's the first time you've ever been on a stage before. I'm fucking looking at Eddie Van Halen's guitar right up close, Amazing, changed my life forever. You know what I mean? Yeah, everybody has those moments, right? but it's still interesting to talk about them. But what an interesting way to get together. I can still remember Geezer making fun of us. He leans over and he calls us colonial cunts. Canadian colonial cunts. That's what he called us. It's now that I've been to England a number of times, I know where that's coming from and why. And it's just, as they would say, taking a piss at you. And it's pretty funny.
So as we come to a close with the interview, is there anything you'd like to say to the fans that have stuck with the band over the last 50 plus years?
Well, you must be fucking crazy like I am. I don't know. What am I going to say, but other than thank you for making it possible for me to have a career this long. I'm very grateful, and I'm here for you just as much as you're here for me. And that's a beautiful thing. Let's hope that it continues. Keep your health and keep happy. That's what we got to do.
So as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a guitarist, as a singer, as a songwriter. I want to acknowledge your courage for dreaming big and actually pursuing that dream over decades. It shows the rest of us musicians what is truly possible. I want to thank you for putting out some all-time great music over the last 50 plus years. It's the soundtrack to the lives of many people. I want to thank you for being vulnerable and for showcasing your struggles in the documentary, which inspires lots of people. And last but not least, I want to thank you for sitting down with me for this interview over the last 2+ hours. I really appreciate it. Lips, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, no problem, man. Thank you for all the lovely compliments and for the great job you did in research, because it sounds like you pretty much know the whole thing, which is pretty great. Not that often. A pretty in-depth interview. Be a lot of shit for somebody to sit and watch.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for the kind words. You're very welcome. And to the Lips fans, the Anvil fans, the podcast fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Okay, you take care, Joel.
If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at joelmartinmastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.